sports are in this weird spot because a lot of us that grew up big sports fans, whether we participated in or that was just part of our culture growing up, we went without it, or either we went without it during the COVID or we went without it in the same capacity, right? It was a different brand from what they were used to. So as people got removed from that, definitely if you're watching it every season and you get removed from that for watching professional sports, the longer you are removed from that, the more, and I think this can be applied to a multitude of different things, but the longer you're removed from it, the more it feels like I don't need it, I think that's how I feel. And I'll speak for myself. And I know other people have as well. You see, a lot of folks went to sports in the NBA and everything as an outlet. It was a beautiful thing too, because what would happen is if you went to games, that's what I loved about sports culture anyway. Me being an athlete my entire life, I didn't have to agree with you. We had a common goal. We had and we worked towards it, right? I didn't have to agree with anything that you said, or not anything like as far as your politics, social views. That wasn't even important. It didn't care. A lot of you guys that went to bars to go watch the game or watch the fight, or you went to an actual game, so like sports, team sports games, or you went to the stadium, and you would link up with people that you never knew before, and y'all became buddies for that day because y'all were cheering on the same. It was a beautiful thing. It was like to watch those cultures mesh. And then they stripped that away by way of playing politics, and playing in the league itself. I want people to understand that it's a difference between that individual having a political slant. Not to say that people won't have a problem with it. I think people have less of a problem with it in comparison to what's actually happening. So if X basketball player or football player has their political positions, that's one thing. That political position gets taken into the sport itself, or rather that's where we see it displayed. That's when people start having an issue. It doesn't matter really what it is. So if you can leave it out of the game, people will let you pretty much have whatever positions it is that you want, and won't have as much problem with the brand. They'll still watch the game. They may disagree with you, and they will voice their disagreement. But that doesn't mean that they'll just stop watching it. When the NBA, for example, which is a topic of conversation, when they went all in on social justice, it was unwatchable for a lot of us. I mean, we go in there and we watch this shit, and we see on the courts your social preferences, the jerseys, your social preference, the backboard, your social preference. Every what do you like? All the sports talk shows. That's all they talking about. Politics and social preferences. And then you look at like what do you call those? The press conferences, the commercials. You couldn't get away from it. There was no way to get away from some dickhead who probably wasn't even smart enough to even have that position, right? Sitting here lecturing you about how you're a bad person and how they care so much about these other aspects of social justice. You got idiots like was Kyle Korver writing in the Players Tribune. I know that was a little before all this stuff started to, well, not a little before. Actually, it was right when it started to get bad. Basically writing how much he hates himself. Freaking loser. People aren't watching sports for the most part for that. Well, more examples of this continue to happen. Where their ratings are showing it, bro. NBA ratings are worse than we thought. This is coming from, as I mentioned, by Outkick. And this is what I actually want to make sure I click on. Let me see if I can get that. NBA ratings prove the league is in an undeniable decline. As mentioned, you're seeing the league's most prominent broadcast partner down 45%. That's NBA games on ABC. We're down 45%. Excuse me, since 2011, 2012. 45% within the same time frame. NBA broadcasts on TNT were down 40%, and on ESPN down 20%. Going into the playoffs, they have record lows. So when people you will be watching your league, or rather should be watching your league, the absolute most, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening at all. They're saying we're not watching this in comparison to what we're doing the previous year. And this is the crazy thing, or previous years. This was an easily avoidable thing. They just didn't want to come to terms with it, which is why it got worse. And they tried to walk some of that back, less stuff on the jerseys and stuff. It's too late. Again, sometimes people, if they go without, for example, for a long time, and you've turned them off because of that for a decent amount of time, they're not coming back. Or rather, the comeback, you have to prove to them that you actually value them. What you do effectively is assume that everybody and their mama agrees with your brand, and that's not often the case. And you can get away with that sometimes. But for something like sports, which embodied really everybody was part of that, you can't take a side like that and expect for there not to be a kickback. Now, they don't want to come to terms with it. They'll blame digital stuff, people are watching streams and all of this stuff. No. It's simply because folks aren't interested in your product as much anymore, man. They'll never admit fault. They'll talk their way around it. But when you went all in on catering to that block of political or social political views, this was always going to happen. Now, I think the unfortunate thing is that that's a different type of demographic that they're trying to appeal to. It's a demographic that is unreliable. But they went all in on this. So they went all in on an unreliable, flaky demographic. Yeah, turning off the people that were willing to purchase it, more likely to purchase it. And your ratings show pretty much across the board. And it's not just the NBA that's having these problems. Other sports are having these problems because this last year they went all in on social justice. We're not interested. We're simply not interested. It'd be one thing if you kept that out of the sport, but you brought it into the sport itself. So I can't view this and watch myself be like, basically they're insulting people. Okay, if that's where you want to go with it, people took their money and they went elsewhere. People took their viewership and they went elsewhere. I think for the first time, I can remember if it was the NFL or the NBA for the first time, or I think it was the NFL. I might be wrong. Well, the salary, for the first time in a long time, the salary cap went down. See, this is what I said. It may be a while where a lot of the players who starts to feel the kickback. It may take a little bit. Once these deals are up for renewal, TV deals, and the TV deals, they realize, okay, we getting the short end of the stick now because people ain't watching your stuff. And our advertising pool is either lessened or we have to charge less because we know people understand that it's not as much eyes on it. That's when the reality sets in. So you can get away with it for the near future. The long term is how it's going to be interesting. We haven't even seen anything yet because they can turn it around. But if they don't, players' pockets start taking a hit. And that's when you start to see more players step out like, hey, nudging a teammate against hey, shut the fuck up, man. You ruining it for all of us. It's going to be interesting to see that play out. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.